I'm Ed Parco, and I'm with Amy T. How you doing, Amy?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a minute.
Yeah, we took some time off to retool and do some certain things, relook at how we're doing things, and we'll move forward from there. So, who's our guest today? I'll bring him in. You say who he is. All right.
Okay. So, Andrew, I actually met him and his wife. We went to the Dutch Caribbean back in October, and it was really great to meet another combat veteran. And I will let him share his story.
Well, before we get there, Dutch Caribbean, is that different than regular Caribbean? Where's the Dutch Caribbean?
So, it's what did we learn? Like 30 nautical miles from Cuba, actually,
I
something like
can't,
that.
All right.
but
Too much work.
not that far from Venezuela either.
Hmm.
All right. So, Andrew, what's your story?
Yeah. First
Army-
off, it's great to be with you guys. When Amy messaged me, any chance I get to kind of hang out and talk with her again, I was looking forward to that all this week. So thank you for having me on. I was
Thanks for being here.
thank you. I was just a infantryman. I say that because seems like everybody these days was special forces, something like that. But I was your normal grunt. I was the infantry with 10th Mountain Division, and I was in the Army from 2002 to 2005, and deployed to Fallujah, Iraq, in 2003, and that's when I was wounded. We were on patrol there in Fallujah. The 82nd kind of had us doing a ride along with them, and we had just crossed the Euphrates River when the enemy set off an IED to kind of initiate their ambush, and that's when I got hit with shrapnel from that IED.
Wow, that's I hate to say it, that's horrible. I'm trying to keep my words clean.
Yeah.
So I have a question, and I actually want to go back, and I apologize. Why did you choose the Army? We always ask that.
I wanted to go to Ranger School. I actually signed up for the reserves as an MP, believe it or not, first. And I went to a couple drill weekends before I was supposed to go to basic training. And there was this former Ranger. He'd gotten off active duty as a Ranger and then joined the reserves as an MP. And the more he talked to me, he's like, man, you just need to go active duty infantry and then go to Ranger School. And so when I signed up, that was the plan, to go ahead and get to my unit and then get a slot for Ranger School.
All right. So then what happened? Like, what made you decide active duty is better?
It was at that point in my life, and I think it's tough sometimes when you're young, and college was not for me. I initially went and played college basketball, but even that, I did not like college that much and wanted to kind of start my life and do something. And the more he talked and the more that I saw just some of the benefits that you get and the opportunities, the doors that would open, I just wanted to go active duty. So the plan was to do that. But then, of course, the Iraq war kicked off. We were deployed, and then the plan was get through the deployment, go to Ranger School when I get back. But then after being wounded, there was no way that I could stay in and go through either life as an infantryman or go to Ranger School at that time.
So there's new buttons, as you notice, Amy, to play with on this thing now. They've upgraded the whole software. It's a totally different playing field. So what happened to you? You got injured over there, and I know IED. I don't know your whole story, and people listening to you don't. So can you kind of walk through what happened to you?
Yeah, so when the IED went off, shrapnel came in, went mostly through my left leg. We were able to patch that up pretty quick. They put me in the hospital there, did a couple of surgeries. I was in the hospital about 30 days, and I was actually able to go back to my unit there in Fallujah. What I didn't realize at the time, and what the majority of the world didn't realize at the time, is just how much of a toll those explosions were taking on our brains. And it was really NFL quarterbacks that kind of got those studies started from their concussions and help us start to understand traumatic brain injury a little bit better.
Gotcha.
And so over the years, I think it was 2007 when I was first diagnosed with traumatic brain injury, and then started going for more testing, different things like that. And then really, there's no changing the past. It's just learning kind of to adapt to certain triggers that cause migraines, keeping yourself out of situations, that you shouldn't be in, that's going to be a little bit harder for you to accomplish your goals in, and just really adapting to what your body is now.
Now, when you were transitioning out, I assume they did a medical discharge of you,
Yes.
retirement or something. Okay.
No.
I don't want to assume, but that's kind of what I figured
Well,
out.
I didn't
And,
retire. I was medically discharged.
okay. And from transferring out, how was that process for you?
Oh man.
When they were like, I mean, first of all, you lost most of us lose our duty, what we were planning on doing, and it changes everything compared to what you're planning on. And we try to explain to everybody, plan for everything, but nobody
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. No, it's definitely exciting just getting that DD 214 and realizing you're not going to have to deal with military stuff anymore, the bad side. But then it is tough. I mean, that's your buddies, that's your friends, that's a very clear sense of purpose in life. When you're an infantryman, it's not too complicated. You have very clear guidelines on what you're supposed to do, what your goals are, how you accomplish those goals. And then transitioning to the civilian side, it's not quite as clear cut. You all of a sudden have all these college majors that you can choose from, all these career paths that people kind of approach from different ways. And so it is a little bit overwhelming when you're making that transition.
Now, did you try school again, or you just haven't?
I did. I tried a couple of different times over the years, and I think in classes that I was very interested in, I did okay in those classes, and then classes that were most of your core classes that you had to take to get a degree, I did not do good in those classes.
Isn't that how it always is?
Yeah.
That's how I was.
No, so I never finished or anything. I went to school a couple of different times, and then ended up just started working. So
Working.
I think it's funny because like love of learning is one of my top character strengths, and so I love to take the classes. It almost doesn't matter what it is, but very few people are like that.
yeah.
And so I have a girlfriend who was like getting like an additional master's, and she was just lamenting about how horrible. And I'm like, why are you doing it then?
Yeah.
Like, where did love of learning? If it's on the bottom, why just assault your senses?
Yeah.
But yeah.
So,
okay. So
what do you do? What did you go into? You said you went to working. When did you start working? What did you do when you got out?
Yeah, my first job actually getting out of the Army was coaching high school basketball. And I played all through high school, college, never received one technical foul. And then going from combat to coaching basketball, I got 7 technical fouls as a coach that first year. And so it was really
a little
hard.
more aggressive. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and just everything in combat is obviously life or death.
Right.
And then kind of getting onto the referee like it's life or death doesn't go over good most of the time. But yeah, so I did that for a year, and then I became a student pastor and worked as a student pastor for about 10 years. And during that time, I owned a couple different like small businesses. And then that led up to 2014. And then in 2014, I actually started doing like mission work full time with an organization. And that's where I first started going over to India and met some orphans that would really change our life.
Yeah, I saw that I wanted to get more in depth with that because I saw that on the post that Amy did. And can you get more in depth with what you did there, how you got really involved with that, and how you've changed, how it's changed, what's going on there?
Yeah, so we met a guy that he believed he was put on this earth to help kids that nobody else was there to help. And he'd started by taking like 1 or 2 little boys and girls into his home. And then when we met him, we started giving him, I mean, it was a very small amount of money per month. Like, I think it was like $100, $200. And we just kind of sat back and we were going to watch and see what he did with it. And he took 8 kids in, then 10 kids. And so we gave him a little bit more money, and he just kept taking these kids in. And so it has grown from the first 1 or 2 kids to now we have 87 children there at the orphanage full time. We have 3 properties that we've been able to pay cash for the last few years. And
Wow.
It's just absolutely remarkable what they do over there. And I get a lot of credit on Facebook for it because we do a lot with social media and I'm in a lot of the pictures, but my role is very small compared to the staff that we have there on the ground and the difference that they make.
I thought you shared something with me about how you don't often tell them when you're coming. Why don't you share with us why that is, and all the nuances with that.
Yeah, so it's no different than like a surprise inspection in the military. We were all exposed to those, but people kind of ask, what do they do with the money? Are they always taking care of the kids? Do they just send you pictures? And probably 4 or 5 trips I've went over there without giving anybody a heads up that I'm coming. I just show up right there at the orphanage, and things are always exactly how I expect them to be. The kids are always well taken care of. They're in school. They're all there at the orphanage. And so that has just been just reassuring to me that our staff does do the right thing all of the time. So.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Ed. I have one more thing.
That's okay. I'm so used to you cutting me off anyway. Go ahead.
You shared the greatest story ever about how the orphanage celebrates birthdays. I would love for you to share that story.
Yeah, so when we first started going over there, it was in the summertime, and I was just trying to think of any excuse to get back over. And so I was like, what if we do a Christmas at the orphanage? So we went and we did that. And then I did not want to wait another year to go back for Christmas at the orphanage. And so I said, does anybody have a birthday coming up? And the kids kind of looked at me like I was crazy. And the more I talked to them, the more I realized the majority of children had no idea when their birthday was. They'd never celebrated with a party. They'd never gotten present. They'd never had cake. And so the idea kind of came to me like, let's just do one big birthday party. We'll call it Birthday at the Orphanage, and we'll celebrate the life of every single child here. They'll all get presents. They'll all get cake. It's going to be awesome. And it has been. We've done that for 8 years now, and it just kind of gets bigger each year. We get more people involved, and it's just another day that we can show the kids they're loved, they're valued, and somebody cares about their life.
However, Amy's part of that story that she wanted to share was about the balloons.
Oh my goodness.
Well, you didn't lead in very well. You know that story we talked about with the balloons?
Okay, well, at least I set the stage for the rest of the story now. Okay, so I show up one year, and it's decorated. There's balloons everywhere, and they're like all up at the ceiling, and it's probably like a 10-foot ceiling, but I jump up and grab one of them because they were hanging down a little bit, grab one of them, and I wanted to show the kids how you suck helium out of balloons. And so I kind of bit a hole in it, started sucking the helium out, and then went to talk. And number one, my voice was still the same, but number two, it was the nastiest taste I've ever had when I sucked that helium. And I was a dumb infantryman, so I'm like, is Indian helium different than American helium?
You know, I've heard this story somewhere before.
I didn't know. So it went viral like a couple of years ago when I made a Facebook reel about it. But yeah, so I do this, and so I start asking our orphanage director, I'm like, why is this helium not changing my voice? Why does this helium taste terrible? It's disgusting. And he's like, that's because it's not helium. He's like, the orphans blew up those balloons and they taped them to the ceiling. And sure enough, I looked up and all the balloons had been taped to the ceiling. They weren't floating up there. And yeah, I'm glad Amy never forgot that story.
So I might have told you that story, Ed. But,
I heard that story before from somebody that must have been talking about you. Maybe it was Amy. But
it very well, because I loved that story because I thought of what the kids would think as they watch him. One, like, how tall is that guy? That's crazy. And then two, why is he sucking our air? You know, all I wanted to do for the rest of the time that we were together is go, hey, orphan breath. I didn't, but
that's just rude, Amy.
I know, right?
So what do you guys, what do they need? How do people get involved? How can people help you? That if you can go through that with the orphanage.
Yeah. So when I first identified the need, I had a good following on social media, and no matter what I'm doing in life, I kind of really share a lot of what we're involved with my followers. And so when we met the children in India, it was no different. And so I got on social media and I said, guys, we have some kids. We have the opportunity to help. I know most of you don't have a lot of money, but I said, if we each give $10 a month, I know that we can make a difference in these kids' lives. And I didn't know what was going to happen from that point on, but we had like 400 people sign up to each give $10 a month. And when you start looking at the math on that, that's enough money to really start making an incredible difference in the life of these kids. And so those 400 signed up, and that really is our core group of supporters is those that give like $10, $20 a month. They can do that. If anybody's interested in doing that, you can visit orphansinasia.org. But that really laid a foundation for us to build on. And since then, we've had some larger donations that fund the purchase of vacant lots that we can expand on, allows us to remodel, to buy beds, to buy food in bulk now instead of just daily. We can order rice by the truckload and not only feed the kids at the orphanage, but take it out into the villages. And for families that are struggling, we really focus on orphan prevention. We keep those families together instead of letting something happen to the parents and then us taking the kids in. We want moms and dads to be able to raise their own children. And so it's really just people sacrificing. I mean, you look at the way our country was built, it was because people were willing to make sacrifices.
Oh no.
We lost him for a second. I think we lost the signal. Yep, he's gone. Are you back?
I think I'm back now.
Yeah, you are. You're back.
All right.
All right. So the orphanage, was there a certain thing that happened were they all orphans, or is it just life things have happened for each one of them?
Their backgrounds are very different. The one thing they really have in common is it's usually some pretty horrible circumstances that these kids have lived through. A lot of the children, their mothers were prostitutes and they get HIV, they pass away, and then the kid is just there on the street by themselves. We have one girl that was 3 years old when her mom passed away, and she just wandered around for about a year, and people would throw her scraps, different things like that, until a policeman ended up recognizing what this little girl was facing and brought her to the orphanage. In India, health-wise, in a lot of situations, one parent will pass away, and then a few years later, another one will, and then that's when we get the kids. And then sadly, there's sometimes where parents just financially cannot take care of their children, and they have to move away for work, but still want the child to stay in school there and stuff. And so we'll take them into the orphanage then, not knowing when kind of their parents are going to be able to come back into the area. So it's all different, but it's just tough to see kids going through the situations that they do.
Now, I had asked you this, like in the U.S., when you're in foster care, not so much, and I don't know if orphanages here are the same, but in foster care, you time out. Like once you turn 18, you're no longer a part of the foster care system. Do you guys, what is the age in India or at your orphanage that they time out? And then what happens?
Yeah, we really don't have one. And that's, I mean, being the smaller private organization, I can kind of make that decision that we're just going to stay connected with these kids for as long as they need us, and maybe even a little bit longer than they want us in their life. We're gonna still message them on Facebook, see what they're up to, check in on them, and just make sure they don't need anything. But our oldest child was able to get an internship with Honda, assembling engines and different things when he graduated. And then we have a lot of kids now that are in college that are still just working on getting their degree, and we're helping fund that. We're walking with them through that process. We've had a few kids grow up and get married, and that's really weird to think about, and just watch that happen, that these kids that a few years ago were just young teenagers when you first met them, and now they're growing up. And we've been there just to kind of walk with them through the different stages of life. And I want to keep doing that, again, for as long as they need us. Growing up as an orphan, they've kind of been they're dealt a hand that's not exactly fair. And we all know by this point, life's not fair. But again, anything we can do to make the rest of their life easier, I believe our donors want to do that. And so we're going to do that to the best of our ability.
All right. So how do you raise funds for the organization? Is it just by people donating, or do you do events? What do you do? Or that was said, or did I miss it or something? I'm sorry.
Do what?
Was it said and I missed it?
No, we still do a lot on social media. Thankfully, we've had a couple donors that have been able to write some pretty large checks the past few years that have really allowed us just to dream bigger. And we haven't had to do really in-person events yet. And thankfully, we launched like a week before COVID hit. So like that was a pretty interesting time to start a nonprofit. But Yeah, we do a lot of social media fundraisers, and so when people share those things, or again donate $10 or $20, that does make a difference in the life of kids.
How do they do that? Where do they go?
Yeah, search for Orphans in Asia on Facebook, or you can search my name, Andrew Smith. And we usually do one monthly fundraiser that goes for a very specific item. For February, it's going to be to buy new blankets and mattresses for the kids there at the orphanage. And these fundraisers are usually capped at about $500. So again, it's for a specific need, a specific amount that we're going to spend on that. And then within a few weeks, donors can see exactly where their money goes and watch the kids get their new mattresses, get their new blankets, things like that. And so those are a lot of fun. And then twice a year we'll have Birthday at the Orphanage and Christmas at the Orphanage, those two events. And so in around June or July, you can keep an eye out for Birthday at the Orphanage. And then somewhere November, December is when we'll start talking about Christmas at the Orphanage.
Amy, can you get that information where people can go to and put it in the show notes?
Yep.
Okay. Especially on YouTube.
Anytime somebody wants to donate directly, they can just go to orphansinasia.org. And that's usually the easiest place just to give.
And so Asia is a large place. You cover everywhere in Asia?
Yeah, we started in southern India, have really just kind of been growing that. We help with startup funding with some other orphanages. And then one of the other things we do when families in America are adopting from Asia, we will try to help with fundraising for that. Because I think when somebody adopts a child, that's a pretty incredible thing. And the last thing I want them to have to worry about is money. I think a lot of people would agree with me on that. And so anything we can do to raise funds for those families, we want to do that as well.
Wow. Amy?
Yeah.
Cut me off all the time. So I just want to make sure.
Sorry. Well, anyhow, I was going to say, have you learned any lessons, like anything that you've purchased for the kiddos that you're like, okay, not going to do that again? You know, because life is a learning curve, right?
A lot of stuff over the years, Amy. So, what I've learned is that I don't know a whole lot of anything. But no, that's a great question, because one of the first things when I went to the orphanage, none of these kids had shoes on. And I was like, we have to get these kids shoes. Like, this is a priority. Let's do this right now. So that afternoon, we went out and bought, I think at the time we had 50 to 75 kids. We bought like 75 pairs of shoes, brought them back to the orphanage. The kids loved them. We took pictures. And then less than 24 hours later, none of the kids are wearing shoes again. And I'm like, where are their shoes? And the orphanage director, he's like, I never buy them shoes. They always lose them. He's like, they would rather go barefoot. And so the kids had already lost their shoes. They weren't wearing them. So yeah, I learned that lesson quick. Don't spend money on shoes. We'll buy food, different other things, but not shoes.
Well, and I think that's normal. Like, I remember the story of getting linguists finally, and like we were helping do waterways in, I don't know if it was Afghanistan or Iraq, the very first ones. And then they learned that the women actually hated it because they wanted to have the time away from their husbands. So the walk down by the river was taken from them because we thought we were doing this great thing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So you made them walk again? Is that what you did?
I don't know what they did after learning. I just know that was one of the big takeaways, and one of the reasons why the Army focused and had quite a few female linguists, so that they didn't do things like that in the past. So I think anytime in nonprofit world, it's build, learn, or build, measure, learn, repeat.
Nope. Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sorry, and where are you out of?
I live near Blacksburg, Virginia.
Okay. Not next door to Amy.
Not next door to.
I'm so used to her talking to everybody around her neighborhood that comes on here because there's so many people up there.
There is. So when we went, I didn't know anybody other than the organizers on the trip that we went to. So that was kind of cool.
So this trip you guys went on, what was it for?
So Operation Ward 57, Brittany, who's been on here, and like we had talked about maybe bringing her back to let her share kind of new initiatives and different things like that. We got to be the pilot of a program taking combat vets down to Curacao with their spouses. Like a lot of times there's something where it takes just the vet away, but not necessarily the spouses, and not as a group thing. And so it was, I enjoyed it immensely, and getting to know new people was really fun.
And Amy got to teach me how to scuba dive. So
right.
That was good.
You know, Amy, you know how to scuba dive?
We went for the first time.
Okay. All right. Yeah, when I stayed in San Diego, we did it out there all the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's cold. So it's not real fun. That's some cold, dark water. If you can dive in San Diego, you can dive anywhere. Because they ask you, where'd you learn to dive? If you say Hawaii, they're like, oh, we can't take this guy out. It's going to be too easy. It's too hard. You know, it's dark down there and cold. They're not used to that.
I prefer just to go to Curacao. Yeah, no, that's plausible, but that's where I'd like to.
I prefer to go down one time, and that's enough for me. I'm not real good on multiple dives anymore. But all right, so before we go, what else do people need to know so they can get involved? We said the name, say the name again, and then what is there a need that you guys need more than just money? Is there clothes that's needed? Is there other stuff that people can give and donate or might have access to that you need for the orphanage?
Yeah, with India, with India being so far away and kind of difficult to get to sometimes, it's usually a lot cheaper for us to buy what the kids need there in the local area versus me taking it on 4 or 5 different flights to get there. And so as much as I want to say yes, like give us physical things to take there, it's usually just not the wisest stewardship move to do that. So monetary donations make an incredible difference, allow us to do what we do. But man, when people are active on social media, it's crazy the power in numbers. And so, yeah, visit Orphans in Asia on Facebook and Instagram, like the page. And when we're doing these fundraisers, share them. We've had an incredible amount of money raised the past few years from birthday fundraisers. And I love seeing people that we don't even know that live in the Philippines or Singapore. They will create a birthday fundraiser for Orphans in Asia. And then I get to go and watch these kids whose lives are being changed because of that. And it's just pretty neat. And then one random thing, Amy, I don't know if you've seen this. Sometimes my life is really weird, but I posted a cooking video about a month ago and it went viral. And I've had about 30,000 people follow me thinking that I am like a chef or something. So now each day I do a recipe and share it with my followers. And it just keeps growing. And so, yeah, so if you're into recipes, those kind of things, that's
not going to lie. I've watched you cook a couple of times and I'm thinking, oh, I might try that. And I don't know. It was pretty funny. And it was random.
Good. We had egg roll noodles tonight with like shredded pork. And I'm excited to share that one because that was a delicious meal. But yeah, if you would have asked me a month ago, do you want to start a cooking channel? I would have said no, but that's where I'm at right now. So yeah, if you like cooking videos, feel free to search Andrew Smith, follow me, connect with me on there. And anytime anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Like that guy out of Las Vegas who helps all the local businesses by rating the food. Have you seen him, Kevin?
I haven't.
Oh man, he's saving so many businesses that were hurting because it's the power, like you say, of social media. It's huge if it's done right. Yeah. And he's there. He just started reviewing the stuff. It was no big deal. Now he's got millions of followers on TikTok. He saved many restaurants recently that were dying because they can't get the word out how good the food was. And he went there, tried it, and he's like, and just the way he talks about it, he takes a bite, and if it's me, he rolls his eye. You know what I mean? Just the whole thing. And yeah, check him out, Kevin. I remember his last name, but he's out of Vegas, and it's amazing. So I'm just saying that it's amazing what you can do with your community, amazing what you can do for other people with social media if you do it for just sharing stuff and not necessarily trying to sell something.
Yeah, well, that's what the best thing that's happened because of, other than getting 30,000 new friends, is when they send me stars on Facebook, which is like a tip. We actually use those to buy groceries for people in the communities. That's what my fans voted that they wanted me to do with the money, was buy people in the community groceries. And that's what we've been able to do. And it's kind of like the highlight of my week, being able to deliver those groceries to people that need them.
That's amazing.
See, so I literally met another volunteeraholic.
Yeah, but he does it smarter. He cooks, and then he gets the stars, and then he goes out and drops off the groceries. You just work too hard all the time, Amy, about it. So.
Well, and that may be true. And he is very, very tech savvy. You know, his whole family. Like he has a thing with his kids that if they're doing something on their phones, they can have almost like unlimited time with them.
If they're pretty,
you know, and so that's kind of teaching differently. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed both Andrew and his wife immensely. They were just really cool. They are just really cool people. So
well,
I really appreciate that.
We had a blast with you. That's for sure.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching us today. We really appreciate it. If you're watching this after the fact, just let us know. Andrew, thank you so much for sharing your story and talking about what you do. And people will get involved. We'll put the information in our notes. And also, Amy, get the cooking channel so we can put that in there also.
Okay.
And then that way people can find you and help out what you do, because it's amazing what you're doing.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me on.
Oh, yeah. By the way, Amy, thank you for being here, too.
Well, and thank you, Ed, for being here.
I appreciate it. And Andrew, stay right there. All right, everybody else.